Hey there, Jaguars. So before we get into this, I want to give a little PSA, and I'll keep it brief, y'all don't worry, but I was sort of worried going into this episode because we're going to be talking about food facts. And food facts make me anxious because food does not work the same way for every person. And we're going to be talking about coffee, its health benefits, its risk, and how to make it better. So if you have never really been able to have coffee before, or you think you might not be able to handle that much, please go with that over our advice. We run a podcast. We are not doctors. I will be citing a lot of doctors in a bit, but these aren't the doctors who know you and your records. Always go with what they say and take our tips and tricks with a grain of salt. Now, with that being said, a lot of what we found here today is really good information for those of us who love coffee and have always maybe had a bit too much of it. And if you stick around with us till the end, we can even tell you how to make some of what you can get at a coffee shop in your own dorm room. We've all heard different coffee facts, and a lot of them are probably contradictory. So I'm just going to go through a few of these and sort of clarify what coffee really does for us when we drink it. So first off, does coffee give us energy? The Queensland Health Department supports this idea. According to them, caffeine can help with the signals our body sends to the brain, making us more alert and active. This will kick in around 5 to 30 minutes after drinking coffee and could last up to 12 hours. I say it like that because, as all of us coffee drinkers know, it can be hard to gauge how much energy we'll get from a cup of joe. And all of our family and friends probably drink different amounts of coffee to feel energized in the morning. The Queensland Health Department explains that this is because caffeine, like any food product, breaks down in our bodies differently from person to person. So someone who drinks only a little coffee and has a certain metabolism will have a little bit of coffee and be ready to go, while people who drink a lot of coffee or have a different type of metabolism will need a lot more. I'm so glad that I found that, by the way, because I would never get energized from just one cup of coffee. And I was always like, is it me? Is it coffee? Is everyone being paid off by big coffee to say that they get energy from this? But no, it's not just us fellow tired people. Okay, I guess it's a part of us. But this means that it's possible to play around with different amounts of coffee at different times of day and maybe find something that works for you. Another coffee question I always come across is, does coffee help you focus? There are a good bit of sources, and by sources I mean web pages, that say caffeine has shown it can help people focus. The thing is, none of these sources are as reputable as the Queensland Health Department or the other very well-known sources I have for later. They do say that their information comes from scientific studies, but they don't link which ones or mention how to find them. So it's entirely possible that there's a lot of scholarly articles out there that can prove this, but they sure aren't making them easy to get a hold of. I'm not going to say that this means it's not true, but it certainly means that it's not as well proven as some of coffee's other properties, and therefore you should look into it yourself before taking it as gospel. So what do we make of that? For me, I would think about how coffee has made me feel in the past. If you can focus better after drinking coffee, then maybe your body breaks down caffeine in a way that helps. Or maybe it's just a mental trick to get yourself into the right mindset. Either way, if it works for you, then there has to be something behind it. And if it doesn't help you focus at all, then that's okay too. It's just not something that works for you, and it could be because coffee just doesn't do that in the first place. I think that this next question is really the one we all have on our minds whenever we come to this sort of topic. Is coffee healthy for you? The Mayo Clinic, in their latest research, found that people who regularly drink coffee were less likely to develop Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, multiple liver diseases, and were less likely to have a heart attack or stroke. That is really amazing data. There are a few foods out there that can prevent that many diseases and as thoroughly as coffee has been proven to help. Now, the Mayo Clinic also goes on to say that food health studies can be incredibly unreliable because usually when people really like one food, they'll often eat foods that go along with it. And so when you're doing a study, it can be hard to figure out which one of these foods they eat caused that effect. However, this is a pretty well-researched aspect of coffee, And just the amount of data out there does seem to confirm it. Now then, the big, scary bad guy in coffee is always caffeine. And you've probably already heard some of the warnings against it. Too much caffeine can cause high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And some studies even say too much caffeine can be dangerous to pregnant women and the children they're carrying. There are even some studies that suggest it's possible to become addicted to caffeine, and you can go into withdrawals if you stop getting it suddenly. So how much caffeine is too much caffeine? How can you get the benefits of coffee without the caffeine overload? Well, that is actually a lot easier to do than you may think. Now, one of the first ways you can avoid too much caffeine, and I promise I'm not being sarcastic with this one, is to just order decaf coffee. And the reason why I say that is because Johns Hopkins University says that coffee gets its health benefits from the many antioxidants within it that are separate from caffeine. So decaf will have almost all of the health benefits without any of the risks associated with caffeine. Now I know what you're thinking. I need coffee for energy. I can't go decaf. I need the caffeine. And honestly, that's a very valid point. Compared to other energy drink options, coffee is probably the most widely accessible and probably the most healthy of the whole lot of energy drinks. So how do we get our caffeine for energy without going too far? According to Johns Hopkins University, the threshold for caffeine intake is about 400 milligrams of caffeine. If a small coffee, that's about 8 ounces or the smallest Starbucks size they have, is about 90 milligrams of coffee, then you can have 4 to 5 small cups of coffee a day and be completely fine, unless you're pregnant. As I mentioned before, whole lot of issues. Trust me, just talk to your doctor about it first. If you want very strong coffee, then you'll want to stick around to about 2 concentrated cups of coffee a day, as in 2 espressos, 2 extra dark, 2 whatever coffee term means more coffee in a smaller volume, which makes sense. Twice the coffee, twice the caffeine, and twice the daily dose of what's in there. Now, Starbucks caffeine amounts get interesting, because many of their drinks include a lot of other ingredients like milk and syrups that take the place of coffee. So because of this, a lot of their drinks will have less caffeine than regular coffee, but it will have a lot more sugars and fats. So, if you're wanting the health benefits out of coffee, go decaf. If you want health and energy, stick to 4 or 5 small cups a day. And if you just want energy, try the more concentrated coffee types, but have them less often than you would normally drink weaker coffee. So now that we've clarified different things about coffee, let's go into the field with my co-host Grace to talk about what types of coffee are best for studying for a test and which are the most popular flavors here on campus.
All right, hi, what is your name, grade, and how long have you been working at Starbucks?
My name is Reagan Francis. I'm an alumni since last fall, and I've been at Starbucks for 3 years.
I am Tamaya Worthy, but everybody knows me as T. I am a senior, and I think I've been here for like 2.5 years.
Oh, nice. All right, and what is your favorite thing about coffee?
My favorite thing about coffee definitely has to be the smell and like the energy that it gives you. It kind of like gets you ready for the morning.
Favorite thing in the morning, not gonna lie.
Right.
I don't really drink coffee.
Oh, really? Awesome. No, that's awesome. I'm looking for some people.
Yeah, I don't really drink coffee.
Awesome.
I do drink coffee, but it's really like only one way that I drink.
Yeah. So what's your opinion on pumpkin spice then?
I mean, a lot of people like it. I've never tasted it because I don't like the smell of it.
Yeah.
But I like we have like 3 different pumpkin things here. We have a scone, we have a loaf, and we have a muffin.
Gotcha.
And the loaf is really good with certain coffee.
Got you.
So we have had to try that, but it's good.
And so for our non-coffee lovers out there, what's your go-to drink at Starbucks?
Well, my go-to drink is a coffee drink.
Oh, really?
This is the only way I drink it.
Gotcha.
So it's a grande iced coffee with extra caramel, with white mocha, vanilla, toffee nut, and a little bit of classic brevet and whipped cream.
That sounds delicious.
Yes, it's so good. It's so sweet. But if you don't like sweet stuff, don't try it. But if you do, come in and try it.
My go-to drink right now is iced vanilla chai with pumpkin cream foam on top. Definitely come by and get some. It's about banger.
I'm definitely gonna have to try that.
Yeah.
And what is some tips for people making coffee at home or in the dorms?
If you were to make coffee at home or in the dorms, I would recommend coming to your local Starbucks and getting a French press, because then all you have to do is have some grinded coffee, hot water, press it down, and then you can have as many cups that you need without having to waste all the time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. All right. Hi. What's your name and grade?
My name's Kartik Patel, and I'm a junior.
My name is Kayla Beitzel, and I'm a freshman here at South.
What's some tips for some non-coffee lovers?
Drink coffee.
Drink coffee?
Just you gotta do it.
That's it,
if
period.
not, honestly, I would say a go-to drink would be like any type of tea. Like I would say like green tea.
Oh, chai tea.
Chai tea is also really good for like the season specifically. But I always go for like a green tea with some type of milk, but it would hot for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Hot fits it.
If you want to get into coffee, I'd say start with a lot of milk and cream, and then work your way down if you want to start being on the healthier side and just go straight to black coffee.
I guess just I really like Cuban coffee, like Espumita. Things just get outside your comfort zone.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The Turkish coffee is really good.
Yeah.
Okay,
and what's your go-to drink for when you have to study for a test?
My go-to drink when I have to study for a test is a hot cappuccino with soy milk, sugar-free vanilla flavoring, and a little bit of pumpkin spice, because A, it fits the season, and B, it just kind of cools you down.
Yeah, it gives
It's
you,
a nice,
gives you some spice in your life.
It does give me some spice in my life.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for talking with me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, hi, what's your name and grade?
I'm Nadira, and I'm a junior.
My name is Saja Hijaz, and I'm a junior.
Awesome, and do you like coffee?
I do. I can't live without it.
Do you like coffee?
No.
What's your opinion on the pumpkin spice latte?
Not a big fan.
Not a big fan?
No,
Gotcha.
I don't like pumpkin.
You don't like pumpkin?
No.
What is your go-to drink for my non-coffee lovers listening to this?
The pink drink.
The pink drink?
It's pretty basic. But
What's your favorite thing about it?
It's sweet.
It's sweet.
Really sweet.
Nice. And so is that your go-to drink for when you have to study for a test, or do you got something different?
No, that's the one.
That's the one?
That's the
All right.
one.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Have a great day.
I have to admit, I strongly relate to T's assessment of coffee, and I'm probably gonna go and order one of those. And hopefully I'll even meet her when I go to order it. Let's get into how you can make Starbucks quality coffee at your dorm, or at least the closest thing to it. So first off, what are the different ways to brew coffee? There's an entire world of coffee brewers out there, and you've probably already heard a few of the different types before. Drip coffee, French press, AeroPress, and espresso. All of these are different ways to brew coffee. If you put the same type of coffee beans into each and go through all of the steps to make it, each will prepare coffee in a slightly different way and give it a slightly different flavor. So, if you're wanting a different way to make your coffee altogether, there are a lot of easy-to-use brewers that only need hot water, coffee grounds, and a filter. Espresso machines, mocha pots, and that's M-O-K-A, and AeroPresses all make very concentrated, strong cups of coffee. These are the coffee machines that brew using pressure and are the absolute best for espresso-like coffee, but usually require more technicality to make your coffee with. And I know that I just gave a whole PSA on how to avoid taking in too much espresso with caffeine, but I will say, in case you wanted to make large quantities of espresso for multiple people, not just you studying alone at night in your room for an exam the next day, for multiple people, the mocha pot can brew espresso in mass quantity, like an entire coffee pot full of what's basically espresso. Again, for multiple people, not just you. Multiple people under social distancing protocol. Maybe I should put that in here too. Not just you. AeroPresses deliver the same type of results, but they require a lot more technicality to use, and honestly, they look like a turkey baster stuck on top of your coffee mug. I'm sorry, AeroPress fans around the world, but I cannot condone that aesthetic. I cannot go with it, and quite honestly, it scares me just a little bit on the inside. Another type of coffee maker, though, prepares coffee by steeping it, like tea. These are probably the more well-known coffee makers, and you can see them for sale in most coffee shops. These are the French presses and soft brew pots. In fact, these were the ones that came up in the coffee interviews just now. These both make a very distinctive flavor of coffee that's allegedly much less bitter than other coffee types, if done correctly. The French press holds the coffee grounds on the bottom of the coffee pot while they steep in hot water. You can then pour a cup of coffee from the same pot, and that's where the one and only downside of a French press comes in. If your coffee grind is too fine, it'll slip through the filter and into your mug. This problem is eliminated in the soft brew pot. It has a much finer filter inside what looks like a teapot. You add in hot water and let it sit to 4 to 8 minutes, and then serve it from the pot. I haven't tried these pots yet, but if the flavor really is as good as people say, then there isn't much of a downside to steeping coffee. They're super cheap, easy to find, easy to use, and make great tasting coffee. One issue they do have is that you need a separate container to heat the water in, and then you have to add it to these pots. That becomes very hard to do if you're in a dorm right now. You don't exactly have a stovetop there and ready to go. But this exact issue is why drip coffee makers are so popular. Drip coffee is the official term for the coffee makers every single one of us probably has. You pour your grounds to a paper filter, put water into that clear rectangular reservoir on the side, and it pours water through the filter and drips down into the cup. It's super easy, you don't need a stove, but it also makes some weak coffee. This also includes pod coffee makers that use the little plastic cups of coffee grounds like the Keurig coffee makers. If you're using this type of coffee maker, there's not much you can do to change the type of flavor that the drip coffee will have. There is an easy way to spruce up what comes out though. You can change the amount and type of coffee grounds you put into the filter and can change what you add to your coffee once it's made. In general, just putting more grounds into the filter will give you stronger coffee overall. We'll get into what you can add to your coffee later, but for now, let's focus on the type of coffee beans you're using. So, what are the different types of coffee beans? There are two main coffee bean varieties, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is held in coffee circles as the best type of coffee bean to use. It's less bitter or acidic and has more distinctive flavor, but is typically more expensive to produce than Robusta, so you can see why Robusta holds on in the market. Robusta also has almost twice the caffeine amount that Arabica beans do, so there's really no reason you'd want to use that one. There are two more coffee bean subsets, but these aren't as common as the two main categories. Liberica beans are said to have a flowery aroma and a pleasant woody taste. I'm not sure why that would be tasty, but apparently a woody taste in coffee is just delicious. Liberica is harder to find in stores, but coffee buffs say it's worth the search. The last type of beans is Excelsia. This is even less common than Liberica beans, but has one of the most sought-after flavor profiles in the coffee world. Excelsia beans make a tart, fruity flavor that is unique for coffee and has very little acidity. Once you have your bean picked out, there are different levels to which you can roast it. In general, the darker the roast is, the less acidic but more bitter the coffee will be. Each type of roast is used for different coffee drinks. Light roasts are often called American or New England coffee. Medium roasts are the most common in the US and are usually called breakfast or regular roast in stores. Dark roasts are called espresso, Italian, or French. The thing with roast types is that the different light roasts will all have pretty much the same flavor, medium roasts will all be similar, and so on. To get really different coffee flavors, look for different flavored coffee from more specialty brands. Local coffee roasters especially will combine different roast levels in different ratios to make wildly unique flavors. Most national coffee brands will sell just one roast type per flavor, but smaller brands will combine roast levels and seasonings to make unique coffee flavors. In other words, if you're wanting a different coffee flavor than the standard cup of joe, start by going to the store or coffee shop and look for more niche coffee brands that have flavors like birthday cake, cinnamon, chocolate and spice. You know, the actual flavors in the coffee other than just dark roast or light roast coffee. If the type of roast is the main feature of the flavor, it's not going to be that different from the others. So, how can we make coffee shop coffee at home? Some of the iconic coffee shop drinks are actually very easy to make at home, provided you have the right stuff. The main ingredients used in different coffee drinks are regular brewed coffee, shots of espresso, steamed milk, milk foam, and of course whatever chocolate or caramel or seasonings you'd want to put in. Before we get into the different combinations of these, let's go over how you can make each of these ingredients yourself. The regular coffee can be brewed using whatever machine you already have, but the espresso is going to require its own machine, either a designated espresso maker, mocha pot, or an AeroPress like we went over earlier. The steamed milk and frothed milk are actually much easier to make though, because come to find out, steamed milk is just code for hot milk, so you can heat up however much milk you need for your drink and pour it right in. Emma Christensen from thekitchen.com says that to make frothed milk, just put 2% or non-fat milk into a closed jar or container and shake it until the milk has doubled in size with froth. Then, microwave it for 30 seconds covered and an additional 30 seconds uncovered. This will actually make steamed and frothed milk at once, so you can use this to get steamed milk to pour into your coffee and frothed milk to spoon on top of the cup. So, if you can get your hands on all of these, then you can combine these to make all the different coffee shop classics. To make a cappuccino, put 1 shot of espresso in with an equal amount of steamed milk and a lot of froth on top. A latte or macchiato is 1 shot of espresso with 3 to 4 times as much steamed milk poured in. An Americano is a shot of espresso and 3 to 4 times as much hot water poured in. A mocha is 1 shot of espresso, an equal portion of chocolate syrup or cocoa powder and sugar, then twice as much steamed milk and finished off with frothed milk. A flat white is 2 shots of espresso and an equal amount of steamed milk. A cafe au lait coffee is the exact same thing, only the espresso is switched out with regular coffee. Now, a lot of us have probably heard of these coffee types before, but if you're like me, you most likely stick to coffee drinks with more ingredients and flavors added in. There are a lot of coffee syrups that are super easy to find in stores, and they usually come in packs with vanilla, caramel, almond, and other popular flavors. For a caramel macchiato, for example, just make the macchiato as described and add in as much syrup as you want to get the flavor. The thing about coffee syrups, though, is that they usually are very high in sugar, hence why it's so good. To sort of sidestep that, you can get the pure extracts of whatever flavor you want and add in natural sweeteners to get a sweeter flavor. There are also a lot of non-extract, non-syrup flavors you can use instead. While it's harder to stir in by far, I've always loved adding peanut butter and cream to my coffee. Cocoa powder or chocolate syrup is typically lower in sugar than the other kind of syrups I've mentioned, and cocoa powder can also get you that extra dark, savory flavor of rich mochas. If you like non-sugary coffee, then there are a host of spices you can add to your coffee too. One of the best drinks I've ever had was Osmium Coffee's Mayan Mocha in Chicago. This was a mocha made with extra dark cocoa powder, cayenne pepper, and cinnamon. Cardamom and cloves will also be great additions to coffee if you want to add some seasonings, especially if you want to get into the fall spirit. To make iced coffee like frappuccinos, you need a way to grind the ice. The most direct way to do this is to just get a blender. Put all of your ingredients, coffee, cold milk to whatever level you like it, ice, and flavorings into the blender and let it run until the ice is at a smooth consistency. If you don't have access to a blender, there technically are ways to shave the ice without a machine. However, these methods include whacking a bag of ice with a hammer or making one solid block of ice and then whacking it with a knife. I never thought I'd have to say this ever on this podcast, but please don't hack a solid block of ice with a knife. Unless you're a trained ice carver or whatever that is, please just use a blender. Blenders are nice. If you use them correctly, they're very safe compared to swinging around a butter knife at solid water around your poor roommate who's scared and confused. I get that that doesn't cover a whole lot of the types of coffee you can get in coffee shops, and honestly, that's because a lot of the specialty coffee that they sell there requires really specialty ingredients it's not practical to go and spend a bunch of money on those. So, if there's a certain drink you like at a local coffee shop, support it. Go to your Starbucks, go to one of the local coffee shops here in Mobile, and, see what they recommend to get coffee at home, as well as what you can get in their stores. So we also went over a lot of coffee research and sort of scholarly articles about coffee. And if, while I was going through this, you heard something that you don't think is right, like I know coffee does this and you didn't mention it. Or I know for a fact that coffee doesn't do this and you said that it did. Please prove us wrong. And I mean that. I really do. Here in the Lamp Podcast, one of the things that we really value is research and making sure that everything we do and provide for you is reliable. So, find your article, find your data, and show us where we went wrong and where we can improve our research. Or, as a matter of fact, I could always use more coffee recipes in my life. So, if you can't provide that much scholarly evidence, but you do know a good way to make a mocha, hey, let me know that too, okay? Mix it right in there with all your data. So that wraps up our coffee episode. From all of us here at the Honors College Lamp Podcast, good night and go Jags.